Professional wrestling, sports entertainment, grapple vision, the old rough and tumble, the oily menathon, pillow fighting without the pillows, the fake stuff. It's got many names, some of which we didn't make up, but whatever you call it, fans of this glorious sport/performance art know that there's nothing else like it. Turns out there's plenty of crossover between wrestling fans and gamers, which actually makes a lot of sense. Both involve larger-than-life personalities behind the scenes, both rely on the suspension of disbelief, and both are populated by wacky characters. In wrestling, the persona a performer takes on is called a gimmick. These can range from subtle and serious, like Triple H's cerebral assassin, to completely outlandish, like The Undertaker, who, by the end of his run, was an undead cowboy biker who could shoot lightning from his hands and had a half-brother who was an actual demon from hell. Sounds quite like a video game to me, which got us thinking which of our favourite gaming idols would do well if they stepped into the ring. I'm the extremely muscular and macho Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 video game gimmicks that will be perfect for pro wrestling. Number 10. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider series. Wrestling fans of a certain vintage, aka the really old ones, will remember a time when it was pretty much compulsory for WWE wrestlers to have a second job outside of their time in the squared circle. Examples from this period include Thurman Sparky Plug, a wrestling race car driver, and Erwin R. Shyster, a wrestling tax collector who went by the initials IRS. It was just as ridiculous as it sounds. Sticking with this theme, why not have a wrestler who has another career equally as exciting and physical? Maybe, I don't know, raiding tombs?
I hate tombs.
Lara Croft already has a look that will be perfect for pro wrestling, and her many exploits have shown us that she's quite capable with her fists. Also, the first Tomb Raider game came out in 1996 when WWE was at the peak of its wrestlers with job obsession. Miss Croft could even make her entrance with beloved butler Winston by her side as her manager. There could even be a storyline where an evil wrestler locks him in a fridge. This thing basically writes itself, doesn't it? Number 9. Girahim, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Though not spoken about with nearly the same reverence as Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Wii was still an incredible game that hardcore fans of the series regularly return to. One of the reasons it gets so much love is one of its main villains, the flamboyant, charismatic demon lord Girahim. On a quest to revive his master, the evil demon Demise, Girahim needs a sacrifice of noble birth in order to do this, and wouldn't you know it, he just so happens to have his eyes set on Link's best pal Zelda. Honestly, that princess is more trouble than she's worth. Girahim is like a pantomime baddie turned up to 11, with his elaborate costume, eloquent speech patterns, and all-round theatricality. The only difference between him and the Sheriff of Nottingham is that I don't think the Sheriff carries a dirty great sword around with him. Pro wrestling is all about big, over-the-top characters, especially when it comes to its villains. Girahim would be an excellent choice to go up against any hero from any federation, looking fabulous whilst doing so. Number 8. Ezio Auditore di Firenze, Assassin's Creed series. Though not the first protagonist from the Assassin's Creed franchise, Ezio Auditore di Firenze, who I'm just going to call Ezio from now on to save time, is easily the most recognizable character from Ubisoft's world of historical adventure. Once a young, brash nobleman, Ezio evolves into a wise and cunning master assassin over the course of the series, helping to maintain order in Renaissance Italy by taking down those pesky Templars. By their very nature, assassins are excellent fighters, trained in the art of stealth-based combat either with weapons or their bare hands. Watching Ezio fly around the ring, running circles around his poor opponent before delivering that killer blow would be enough to drive any wrestling crowd into a frenzy. Firenze? There's a joke in there somewhere. Although, fans don't need to use their imaginations to make this happen, as the wrestler Will Ospreay has been borrowing from Ezio for years. He's made Ezio-themed entrances to the ring, and his finishing move is even called the Hidden Blade. If that doesn't convince you that this Renaissance man could make it in the world of wrestling, then nothing will. Number 7. Lady Dimitrescu, Resident Evil Village. During the Attitude Era, WWE's boom period in the late 90s to early 2000s, one of the most popular members of the company's roster was Joni Laura, who wrestled under the name Chyna. A mountain of a woman with bulging muscles and a face that said, "Don't mess with me, sunshine," Chyna cut an imposing presence whenever she was on screen and would often go toe-to-toe with men in the ring, which was extremely rare in mainstream wrestling at the time. A gigantic woman with a terrifying presence and the ability to turn any man into a quivering mess? Now where have I heard that before? Gaming got its own version of Chyna with the release of Resident Evil Village in 2021, where fans were introduced to Lady Dimitrescu. Standing as tall as 9 feet depending on who you believe, Lady D is a vampiric menace who oversees the titular settlement on behalf of the game's big bad, Mother Miranda. Chyna was bad enough, but imagine a woman even taller with vampire powers getting involved. Everyone would be terrified, or aroused, or both. It's genuinely hard to tell with the internet these days. Number 6. Vars Montenegro. Far Cry 3. For as long as wrestling has been a thing, there have been characters who've played up the fact that they're a little bit crazy. From early examples like Maurice Mad Dog Vachon to the loose cannon Brian Pillman, who once pulled a gun on a fellow wrestler, to PCO, a man in his 50s who loves getting electrocuted, wrestling has thrived on performers who like to show off their mad side. However, none of these men can hold a candle to everyone's favourite gaming lunatic, Vars Montenegro. Though not the main antagonist of Far Cry 3, which was a mistake, Vars stole the show with his sadistic actions and his now legendary definition of insanity speech. He makes life hell for Jason Brody in the game, so imagine what he could do if he was real. With zero concern for his own health, both physically and mentally, Vars would be an absolute nightmare in the ring, willing to go to any lengths to seal victory. With such a rich and deep backstory, he could be inserted into any number of different scenarios and make them compelling to watch, although good luck finding anyone who would want to work with him. Number 5. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, Donkey Kong Country Series. Though individual wrestlers may get more of the glory, tag team wrestling has been a staple of the industry for the best part of a century. Wrestlers get together in teams of 2, one fights in the ring, and when they've had enough, they can tag in their partner. Simple, yet highly effective. There are all kinds of different duos in wrestling. High flyers, bruisers, technical masters, but a tried and tested formula for tag team success is to pair one smaller wrestler up with a giant. Groups like Enzo and Cass, Team Hell No, and Two Dudes with Attitude got extremely popular following this template, and we think we found the equivalent from the world of gaming. Though Donkey Kong has been a star since his days lobbing barrels at Mario, the world first met Diddy Kong when he teamed up with his uncle in 1994's Donkey Kong Country. In this platformer, players could cycle between the two primates to make use of their unique skills depending on the situation. Donkey Kong had the strength, whilst Diddy was more agile. Just try and tell me you don't want to see these two go ham on some unsuspecting jabronis. That's wrestling lingo, and you're welcome for it. Number 4. Kratos, God of War series. Before he became the Viper, and just as he was learning the meaning of the phrase "from outer nowhere," wrestling superstar Randy Orton was known as the Legend Killer. The cocky young up-and-comer would prove his worth by taking on established older names from the sport, beating the beloved icons to within an inch of their life to thunderous boos from the crowd. Killing legends is one thing, but if you want to take this idea one step further, how about a guy who makes his name by slaying gods? Whether with Greek deities like his former mentor Ares, or Thor and the rest of the Norse pantheon, Kratos has been there, done that, and got the bloodied axe to prove it. If he were to turn his attention to the wrestling world and go after the gods of that particular industry, then everyone would do well to run and hide. Even without his axe, this dude is jacked. Also, a lot of wrestlers with beards have cosplayed as Kratos over the years, because lest we forget, wrestlers are practically all gigantic nerds. Number 3. Samus Aran, Metroid series. Masks are as important a part of wrestling as headlocks and tiny underpants, especially in Mexico, where a wrestler's mask is a vital part of their identity. Plenty of video game characters have donned facial disguises over the years: Scorpion, Sweet Tooth, Shy Guy, but for this entry we thought we'd try something a little out there. For the majority of the first Metroid game, players are led to believe that Samus Aran, the suited-up bounty hunter protagonist, is a man. Even the game's manual describes the character as male, which makes it all the more shocking when, at the end of the game, Samus's armor comes off to reveal that the hero was actually a woman this whole time. A woman in a video game in 1986? That's absurd! Picture the scene. A masked wrestler in a really cool outfit goes on a massive winning streak against several men. After taking down several high-profile opponents, maybe even winning a championship, the grappler reveals themselves to be female. Nothing like this has ever really happened in real-life wrestling, and we thought it'd be pretty cool. And if you don't agree, Samus will shoot you. Simple as. Number 2. Solid Snake, Metal Gear series. We mentioned stealth earlier in this list when discussing Ezio, but here's a video game hero who takes the art form to a whole other level. The first Metal Gear game, brainchild of living meme Hideo Kojima, debuted in 1987 and introduced the world to Solid Snake, a high-ranking secret agent and master of hide-and-seek. Off the back of this title, which helped popularize the stealth subgenre, Snake would appear in several more of Kojima's games, including 1998's Metal Gear Solid and its subsequent sequels. Most people think of wrestling as just two people battering each other for 15 minutes, but if Mr. Snake has shown us anything, it's that you don't need to be the biggest or the strongest to win a fight. Snake's style of wrestling would revolve around avoiding enemy attacks and, in truly dire situations, hiding himself completely. Imagine a big hulking fighter getting more and more frustrated trying to find this missing opponent only for Snake to pop out of a cardboard box and deliver a finishing strike. There aren't many box-based wrestlers, but if anyone could pull it off, it's our boy Solid. Number 1. Kirby, the Kirby series. Everyone else on this list has brought their own unique skills and appearances, but as the old saying goes, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Kirby, star of the many, many games that bear his name, is a lovable pink blob who first appeared as a mascot for Nintendo back in 1992. Whether he's crossing paths with the nefarious King Dedede or just playing pinball, Kirby is always a sign of a nice time, thanks to his very special ability. The living marshmallow can use his incredible power of suck, stop laughing, to inhale enemies and items. Instead of giving himself the mother of all indigestion, Curbs instead absorbs the powers of whatever he's consumed, making him one of the most versatile characters in all of gaming. Stealing your opponent's moves and appearance is commonplace in wrestling, so the Guardian of Dreamland would fit right in. Admittedly, no actual competitor gains strength from swallowing their enemies and then spitting them back out, but I'm sure we could find a way to make this happen. Just look at the little guy's face. Are you really going to tell him no? Didn't think so.